2 scenes to go. Hey, thank you for joining us. My name is Kurt Krauss, and I'm the producer on The Last Rung on the Ladder. And with me today is director Jeff Blankenship and writer and executive producer Max Blaska. Hey, thanks for joining us, guys.
Oh,
Glad
thanks.
to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So we are 2 scenes away from wrapping this project and going into post-production, which is super exciting. How did you two meet, first of all, and how did this project get going? I was a late bloomer into this project, and you guys have really put together one heck of a team, very talented cast, very talented crew. How did this start?
Well, first off, we met about 8 years ago doing a 48-hour film festival. And when I was doing this, when I was writing the screenplay with Carla Bryant, I wanted a director I was familiar with, who I knew would be a good director to work with. And you were the first director I reached out to, and you
Thank
said
you.
yes, so I didn't have to ask anyone else.
Yep. And yeah, Max and I go back quite a ways, and I have, frequented film festivals and events in Madison, and Max is always there, so I've known him casually and formally for years. So we know each other. We both know Carla. We travel in the same circles. I can't remember if you were involved in Full Circle or not.
No, I was
Okay.
not.
Okay. So that's how we got to know each other.
Excellent. So Max, what then inspired you to go on this journey to write an adaptation from a Stephen King short story?
Well, 2 things actually. One, I've always been a Stephen King fan, and I was introduced to Stephen King from my aunt Betty when I was young. I watched Maximum Overdrive, Firestarter, Cat's Eye, and she gave me my first book, Dark Half. And I always thought about doing A Dollar Baby. I just never really had the courage to do so. And so I went up to Bangor, Maine with my cousin Olivia and took James Tinker's SK Tours. And I was seeing the haunts. I thought, you know what, I think I might do this. And I mentioned it to him, and he said, go for it. And then when I got home, I filled out the paperwork online and got the contract, got the dollar, and started writing.
Awesome. And now you have started it, at the time being it's an LLC. You hope for it to be a nonprofit. How does this film fit in the bigger picture of this nonprofit and what you would like to do with it?
Well, that also kind of goes to my Aunt Betty, who, while a Stephen King fan, she's also a mental health advocate. I think you can say without hyperbole that she was a pioneer, kind of like Betty Friedan was to women's rights, Harvey Milk for LGBT. My aunt was for mental health consumer rights. And I have taken on the mantle, she has since passed, as a mental health advocate. And she came up with the term consumer, which is we are consumers of mental health goods, so you have to show us some respect and listen to us. And I came up with the term mental health warrior because anyone who suffers from mental illness knows it's war. It's like mental warfare. And I believe the best way to fight is through creativity. And particularly when you're young, learning techniques to find your voice, to self-advocate. And I believe the performing arts can do that. And so with Mental Health Warrior PAC, LLC, Performing Arts Clubs, I want to start up clubs for teens who have been touched by mental illness, who are also creative, so they can hone their craft, be taught by performers who've actually lived and can give them hope. And then they'll work for a big showcase at the end of the 10-week period. Dreams of Dreams is I would love this to grow and actually be a nonprofit that would help nurture up-and-coming artists, musicians, playwrights, screenwriters, etc., who want to use their talents to fight mental health stigma and to bring awareness to mental health.
Awesome. Now, you yourself, you openly shared this, and obviously you've spoken to groups about mental illness. What ways have you grown through this project and this process?
Well, one of the most tragic things about a mental illness is it's very hard to share what you're feeling. You're kind of trapped in your head, and the self-stigma makes it hard to express yourself, and you mainly suffer in silence. One of the things is, and this proves my point, that the performing arts creativity can help you get your voice. And I feel that I'm growing in this process, and it's helping me become the mental health warrior that I need to be.
Awesome. Jeff, so you coming in on this project, what ways have you seen Max grow through this? Go ahead.
Well, it's actually been phenomenal. He and I have kind of gone through a little working through things together, and me learning a lot more about Max as a person, a creative person, as an advocate for himself. And what I have noticed is that he has found a voice. He has been able and willing to express his thoughts and feelings about the project, what it means to him. So there's kind of two pieces to this. How strongly he feels about the project and its purpose. And when I first came on board, I knew Max was a writer and a creative person and just liked making films. I did not have the appreciation of this, how important this particular project was, until I started reading it, talking to Max more directly, and understanding the depth and the passion he has for this project. So that was the first thing. And then how strongly he feels about the story itself and how it's constructed. And he and I have had some discussions creatively about the story, and we were talking earlier today about that delicate balance between the creativity and the emotional attachment and the practical elements of producing the film. I shared an analogy. Max spoke to The Shining as an example in a recent email we exchanged, and I thought it was a very apt example where if you read The Shining, it's a phenomenal book. I think it would take a week-long mini-series to make it into any kind of a film or series. It's that deep and that thought-provoking and that evocative. And that's the way Max's mind works. Every idea he has is very deep and very detailed, and it's three-dimensional, and it's instantaneous. He sees it all with such clarity. To put that on the screen, it's more linear, so it takes a lot more to put those creative, deep thoughts onto the screen. So we've had to find a balance between that beautiful mind and creativity into a practical format that can be viewed in a reasonable amount of time. You know, The Shining, the film, was kind of dummied down into just a relatively simple horror film. Well, the book is not that at all. It's got depth and layers and all sorts of intricacies that you can't put into a 2-hour film. And Max's project, I think, is very similar. We didn't dumb it down. It's still got very deep layers, but we had to compromise and find that place where we could do it in 20 or 30 minutes without losing the nuance that Max's creativity would bring to it.
Awesome. I was going to ask you, what were you feeling then when you reached out to Stephen King and his organization to make this pitch for a Dollar Baby script? And then I'm going to follow that up by asking, what were you feeling when you got that acceptance letter?
Well, I was kind of nervous because I had the idea of changing Larry from an accountant to a celebrity psychologist from the beginning. So I wanted to make sure that he knew what I was planning, so it didn't come as a shock, or if he didn't want me to do that, he would say, no, you can't. And so, because I respect him so much. And I also got a little anxious, what is he going to think? What is he going to think? I took liberties here, I took liberties there, but then I realized everything that's done is done out of respect. And so when I got the contract and I sent the dollar, I felt on cloud nine, and I was having a very tough time last year, and the production kind of hit a snag. And the King organization was kind enough to allow me to do an extension. And for that, I'm really grateful, because last year was very tough. A friend of mine almost died, my professional life seemed kaput, and I was very depressed, even suicidal. I actually committed myself into a mental health facility. And then you came aboard, and the movie came to life again. And that's one of the things I want to say, because there are a lot of people who are suffering in silence, who are feeling suicidal, who have their little carnival bark of despair that is needling them to the point of death. Don't. You never know what's going to happen. And the thing is, depression, it discolors your past, it makes you pleasant miserable, and it tries to rob you of your future. And just look at me. I mean, 6 months ago, and now I'm here. I mean, the performing arts can radically change us.
And you know, that part of the story from Max's perspective, you know, people can look out from the outside and say, oh, it's a fun project and good for them, but why should I really care, or why should I contribute money? Well, this is why. This is truly a vehicle to help advance this education and knowledge, and it's a lot more than just a fun project on the side, and there's real value to it. It's not just a hobby, it's truly a mechanism to reach out to people. And we had the example on set. I had a young man at Oshkosh come up to me and say, he was one of our background actors, and he said, I want you to know how important this was to me to be here, and how much it meant to me that you're doing this film, and the story really resonates with me, and I'm so appreciative that you're doing it, and it meant so much to me to be here. One person that day, but how many other people are going to be touched or helped, who don't say anything but are inspired by it. And so that alone, I think, lends itself to getting support from anybody in any way we can get it.
Oh, yes.
Max, again, going back to the heart of this project and then the heart of your nonprofit you want to start, do you have any last words you would like to share for people who are coming to see this project for the first time, but also hopefully one of many more that your organization can be a part of?
Yeah. The arts are very powerful. They are healing. You're not just telling a story on the page and on the screen. You're telling a story from the heart. And this is a very, very personal project, as you've heard over this. And everyone has a story. And I'm hoping that with making this film as good as we can be an inspire for other writers, musicians, filmmakers who struggle with mental illness to tell their stories. And so I'm really hoping that this might be the first Mental Health Warrior production.
Awesome. Well, again, kudos to you for the courage to really unveil yourself in a big way, to reach out and help people and let them know that there's hope, and let them know they're not alone, and that there's a lot of good people who are there for them. And just as you brought together this amazing group of people, you know, hopefully that empowers those watching to do the same and surround themselves with the right type of people to continue to grow and inspire, create, all those good things.
I hope so.
Well, gentlemen.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.